you build and charge. Now your life's made hard. And some hate the next cause of diff complexion. This direction is complex, producing divides like Harriet T, Charles Drew, Minister X, Noble Drew Ali and Muhammad. In these days, survivor community rise to the summit. Won't plummet, the RGC don't dumb it down or be bound in a box. We allow our plus power to shower the Tower of Babel and bring the real feel of the human spirit to the table. The spirit catcher.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are, hi, Susie. Hi, Grace. So we're just watching our new song, and we welcome everybody. This is our new song by our artist and songwriter, Sundiata.
The things you did, what you left, is it a hot mess of progress? Justice is a must give unless you lack the lust to live.
These are members of the Racial Justice Collaborative, 4 members of the Racial Justice Collaborative.
Overstand the rhythm of the universe is played with different strings, and you disperse displayed noise. Understand these things. Don't go for okie dokie. Volunteers wanna see currency and country smoky and crying with tears, collabing with others, cooking in their own cabin, and correct the trajectory. Our ancestors directed me to truth up, spruce up with a new option story. People how it pop in the RGC. People how it pop in the RGC. People how it pop in the RGC. The spirit catcher. Power pop in the RGC. We're coming to door and then pour full stack. Or joints of ore in a white black reservoir spinning in a fat cul-de-sac. Pain stops as the brain mops up blood from the blunt flood of attack. Not a habit to be proud of. Not be the louder voice in the street to speak and leak power. The system's fishy like New England chowder. Aurora Mora. He tours along the side of the Gora, the shark, the Laura, the force, the side dark, her soaring lark, sings the soulful song so forgotten, all about the stony road we trodden. We hand clasp over the tribulations and tribes / clans of right knowledge, women in man's tale, here we stand at last. Divine mind, Diane Wong is out here in your ears to make you wanna come back and hear some more, cause the force is strong. From the sleek fleet support, heat beats son, from Coach Eason, Squally Dogs. P by Frank Eason. P power pop in the RGC. The spirit catcher. P power pop in the RGC. RGC. Spirit catcher. RGC. C. spirit catcher. RGC.
Welcome. Welcome to the Racial Justice Collaborative third annual Juneteenth celebration. So I want to say, before I speak my prepared words, I want to talk about a minute to say how perilous the times we are living in, so that from day to day, there's nothing guaranteed. So we bring today this gathering on this Juneteenth, this gathering of Blacks and Jews and allies, people who were neither Black nor Jewish, but who are concerned and want to learn. And we bring this group together because we have a history. Blacks and Jews have a history. So before I start, let me say, I am Diane Wong, and I'm going to self-identify, and we're going to ask everybody today who speaks to self-identify racially and ethnically, and that ethnically, whatever you think you need to say to clarify or to emphasize who you are. So I self-identify as a Black woman. And again, on behalf of the Racial Justice Collaborative, I welcome you to this Juneteenth celebration. As we are aware, Juneteenth is a day of recognition, of liberation, and celebration of the Black community. It marks, for the Black community, the African-American community, it marks the end of slavery in the Confederate States. For the Racial Justice Collaborative, Juneteenth is a powerful occasion to initiate a movement of common cause, of solidarity between Blacks and Jews. So today is not, this is how we celebrate, and we invite you to celebrate with us. We're going to celebrate justice and liberation, not just in the past, but right now. How can we bring more justice and mutual justice and liberation for ourselves and our communities? So we celebrate Blacks and Jews because Blacks and Jews share a distinct and interconnected history of struggle for civil rights. Blacks and Jews have repeatedly faced injustices, and those injustices persist today in many harmful forms. Blacks and Jews have an enduring tradition of advocating separately and together for justice, equality, and liberation. We call this summit today And we're delighted that all of you are here caring about this topic and caring about liberation and justice. We call this summit today because it's crucial now more than ever to strengthen this bond and unite for change. Frank, next slide. Currently, a wave is rising in the United States, one that seeks to eradicate the realities of Black history and culture. The New York Times 1619 Project, for example, aims to reframe the country's history by placing the consequences of slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the center of our national narrative. Because of that, the 1619 Project has been and is still subjected to a persistent backlash. This backlash is aimed at preventing teachers from using the 1619 curriculum and instead promotes a singular narrative that centers whiteness. This disturbing movement aims to suppress Black Americans' historical struggles, victories, and crucial societal contributions. These aims to erase Black struggles from America's history are a perversion of historical truth and a grave threat to future societal progress. Frank, slide 3. Also, equally importantly, Black Americans are overwhelmingly affected by gun violence. Black Americans experience 12 times the gun homicides, 18 times the gun assault injuries, and nearly 3 times the fatal police shootings of white Americans. These devastating statistics underline a systemic crisis that requires our urgent attention and a solution. Last year, for example, in Buffalo, New York, a gunman used an assault rifle to kill 10 people and wound 3 others. The gunman targeted a predominantly Black grocery store, and all 10 people who were killed were Black. This mass shooting was an act of white supremacist, hate-motivated violence. Slide 4, Frank. Let's take a look at what's happening at the same time with Jewish Americans. Jewish Americans also face severe and increasing threat as consistently the most targeted religious group in the United States. As you can see by this pie chart, Jews account for over half of all religion-based hate crimes, according to the FBI's 2021 data. Since 2016, Jews have been the target of at least 21 extremist plots or credible threats. Recent events in 2023 underline this dire situation. In March of this year, 2 worshipers were shot leaving a synagogue in Los Angeles. Last week, the gunman responsible for slaughtering 11 worshipers at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life Synagogue in 2018 was convicted on all 63 charges against him. Slaughtering 11 worshipers. A few days ago, a man from Michigan was charged with threatening a mass killing at a synagogue. These instances underscore that the murder of Jews is alarmingly on the rise. Frank, next slide. Another form of anti-Semitism posing a significant threat to Jewish communities is Holocaust denial. Deniers either completely deny the occurrence of this genocide or severely downplay its scale, spreading harmful and baseless anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that exacerbate the challenges faced by Jewish communities. Holocaust denial is similar to what I talked about earlier, the erasure of history that Black Americans are facing across the country today. The RJC's concerns are justice and liberation. On this Juneteenth, we unite as Blacks and Jews to powerfully affirm our commitment to combating erasure, injustice, and violence. This summit is more than a meeting. It symbolizes our shared history, struggle, and pursuit of justice and liberation. This summit is a call to action, an invitation to join forces across the injustices plaguing our communities, and in doing so, create a more equitable, safe, and empathetic society. It's time to unite in solidarity, amplifying our voices and catalyze change. Thank you. Thank you for listening. We're going to have Christina, our person who's handling the chat. She's a Racial Justice Collaborative members, but she does everything with our website and all of our advertising. So what we're going to look at now is a pre-recorded video from the voice of the RJC, Farrell Saunders. Farrell, take it away, Farrell.
Hello, my name is Farrell Saunders of the Racial Justice Collaborative, and I am presenting our Juneteenth presentation this year. Thank you all for being in attendance. The topic for this year that we're going to be discussing this time around is, although there are many issues in regards to history or cultural artifacts that people might think of for contentious differences between the Jewish population and the African-American population, or even just the Black population abroad, it's also important to take note and acknowledge the long-standing and rich history of collaboration, work towards mutual benefit, and concern for each other's interests that exists throughout the history of interactions between Black and Jewish people. In the early 20th century, you have many examples of some of the most prominent, influential, and even contemporarily relevant African-American organizations, such as the NAACP, and many historically Black universities that were able to thrive with the assistance of many Jewish American individuals who contributed in matters of assistance with organization, with matters of philanthropy. And these things are very important for how these built this bedrock of interaction and with relations between Black and Jewish people are relevant in the history of the United States.
Can we turn the volume up a little bit?
The American Army was extremely segregated throughout the majority of its history. Black people have served in the armed forces of the United States since technically even before its inception. But for a relevant example to this concern, throughout the important conflict of the First World War, the Black segregated units, which at this point had their own officer corps to be entirely segregated in most respects, was going overseas in order to contribute and come into conflict with the European powers that were opposed to the United States at this time, the Central Powers. At this time, when African Americans returned home, they still faced a massive amount of bigotry, of segregation, and living as second-class citizens, despite the sacrifices that they made for their country overseas in the Western theater. And this would become doubly so relevant when, during the Second World War, when African-American GIs were heading over to fight in the Western theater in Europe to face off against the Nazi regime, which was a bigoted, genocidal, and cruelly discriminatory empire. They were going over to help liberate people that sorely needed it in Europe. And when they returned home, they still faced very similar bigotry in many regards. There's important differences, of course, but to go over there and to largely be received in a positive light by many of the Europeans that were liberated by these units going over, to return home to find no respect, to find no commendation for their efforts. This is what led to the eventual symbol of the double V, for the victory abroad against the Nazis and their bigotry, and for victory at home in order to overcome the bigotry of the United States that they've faced in their home country where they were born since their birth. It's important to note that the African American soldiers that fought throughout essentially every American war, but especially notable in the First World War and in the Second World War, that they fought with tremendous bravery in nearly every capacity possible in the army, in infantry columns, in support columns and networks, in tank corps, essentially anything that could be done. Black people in the United States Army were there fighting alongside every other American, and they fought with great bravery and efforts to be rewarded for it and efforts to be accepted in their home country when they came back because they had fought so hard for it. Many of the Jewish concentration camps stationed throughout Germany and throughout other European countries that were occupied by Germany at the time were specifically liberated by Black segregated divisions as they moved forward through the Western theater. After the end of the Second World War, when the civil rights movement began to pick up, when this energy, when this mentality, this desire to be accepted, to no longer be treated so blatantly as a second-class citizen began to pick up steam, it only makes sense that so many Jewish people would lend their efforts, their assistance, and their resources to aiding this effort. Not only because of historical bonds between Jewish Americans and Black Americans in the past, but also because though these issues were not identical, though Jewish Americans and Black Americans did not face the exact kinds of issues and they often took different shapes and different forms, many of the issues that African Americans faced, Jewish Americans also faced. And so it was only in their best interest, it was only logical in order to help prevent those things to assist the effort that was tackling them, and that was the central civil rights movement. In addition to Jewish people lending their hand in support for Black issues, such as the examples that we had referred to before, there are also many examples of Black people lending their support, their voices, and their organization to issues of Jewish concern, such as in the 70s with the issues of the mistreatment of Jewish people, Jewish Russians, Jewish Ukrainians, etc., in the then Soviet Union. Many of these issues also show how these bonds and these concerns spread beyond just the borders of the United States and has become a global issue. A further example of this is how outside of the United States completely, in South Africa, with the importance of the liberation of the Black South African from the Afrikaner dominant minority, many Afrikaners of Jewish heritage were very crucial to the support of the ANC in order to overcome these obstacles, in order to overcome this incredibly horrific system that was apartheid in South Africa. It shows again that this is a global issue, how even in Africa you have this similar dynamic, how many of the white people that came forward to lend their hand and to fight for what's right in this particular example also still happen to be Jewish people. Again, I have been Farrah Saunders with the Racial Justice Collaborative. Thank you so much for attending our Juneteenth conversation. It is a very important issue that we're addressing here. It is a very important history. It's important to move forward having a good frame of reference for what happened before in order to help build and elaborate on cooperation and efforts towards mutual benefit in future.
Stop the screen share. There we go. Hey everybody, my name is Lane Aryeh. I self-identify as white and also as Jewish. And it's always so powerful to hear from you, Pharaoh. You're a brilliant young Black man. Wow, your videos are always so meaningful to me. Thank you. It's great to see also you really laid it out how Blacks and Jews have supported each other over the years. And I think I mentioned that I self-identify as white and also Jewish. And it's also important to mention that there's a lot of Black Jews in this country and around the world. And there's about 1 million, estimated to be about 1 million Jews of color. So let's just remember that as we move on as well. There's a quote that really moved me, a lot really moved me in Pharaoh's video. There's a quote that really moved me, especially in that slide about Black support for, wait a second, how do I get this out of my way here? There we go, about Black support for Soviet Jews. In 1971, Vernon E. Jordan Jr., who was the president of the National Urban League, said, "We are all diminished when Jews in Russia are denied their basic freedoms, just as all humanity is diminished when Black Americans are denied the equality that is rightfully ours." And his words encapsulated a shared understanding that the struggle for freedom is universal and the oppression of one group affects the entire fabric of society. So thank you for adding that there. I just want to talk for a few minutes about another reason for Blacks and Jews to work together, and that's because both groups are targeted by white supremacists as evil and dangerous. You may have heard of the so-called Great Replacement. This is a conspiracy theory that claims that there's an intentional effort by the Jews, who supposedly hold secret power around the world, to promote mass immigration of Black and brown people and promote intermarriage that would lead to the so-called extinction of whites. And this theory is often trumpeted by Tucker Carlson, others in right-wing media, and actually right-wing folks all around the world. And the mass murderers at the Tops supermarket in Buffalo that Diane referred to, and the mass murderer at the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh, both named the Great Replacement as a main reason for their atrocities. Trump was dog whistling the Great Replacement when he said that people from African nations and Haiti should not be allowed to immigrate to the United States because those are S-hole countries, and that we should have more people from places like Norway. And if that weren't clear enough what he was getting at, he said, "Why do we need more Haitians? Take them out." And somebody else in the room there in the Oval Office replied, "Because if you do, it will be obvious why." And this conspiracy theory, as we see, is a marriage of anti-Blackness and anti-Semitism. And that's why the Klan and other white supremacists at the Unite the Right rally in Charleston were chanting, "Jews will not replace us." But it's not just overt white supremacists. A recent poll found that 1/3 of Americans and 2/3 of Republicans believe the Great Replacement is true. And this conspiracy theory itself is an echo of the protocols of the elders of Zion. This is an anti-Semitic text that was created in Russia in the early 1900s that claims to be written by powerful, shadowy Jews. It claims to describe a Jewish plan for global denomination, and it uses anti-Semitic tropes that have been around for centuries, like Jews are everywhere. Jews are behind every institution. Jews want to destroy our civilization, and Jews always scheme. The reason I mention any of this is to show that Jews and Blacks are often lumped together to represent different kinds of evil and danger, and that both groups are in the crosshairs, literally. Jack Teixeira is a white supremacist who allegedly leaked many Pentagon documents, and he posted a video of himself, finger on the trigger, as you can see right there, of an automatic rifle. In the video, he says, "Jews scam, N-words rape, and I mag dump," before he opened fire with his automatic rifle. So Blacks and Jews are impacted very differently by white supremacy. White Jews receive all the benefits of the system of white supremacy, and still we're under common threat. So let's get to know each other and see how we can support each other. As a first step for this, we're going to move into our fishbowl now. And fishbowl is kind of a funny way to say that we're going to have a conversation between 3 Black folks and 3 Jewish folks. And Diane and I are going to facilitate. And the goals of this fishbowl are to discover our common cause and to begin to build relationship as a step toward building community. And the hope over time is to come together to support each other when things get even harder, like in the run-up to the next election and the aftermath, probably the next election as well, and whatever going down in Russia, and who knows what's going to happen next. So for now, though, we're just taking small steps. And the RJ leadership team came up with a few ground rules for the fishbowl. We invite everybody, whether you're going to be in the fishbowl or witnessing, we invite you to follow these suggestions. Listen intently, stay present, notice your body, speak your truth, step up, and step back. Step up means if you notice yourself sitting back in the conversation and not really sharing, step up into the conversation. And if you notice yourself sharing a lot and taking time, step back some. Also, if you notice yourself getting activated, whether you're watching or participating, we recommend a couple of simple resilience practices. And if it feels right for y'all, maybe we can do them together before we get started. So if it feels right for you, just notice your body as it is right now. And if it feels right for you, put your feet flat on the ground and feel the sensations at the bottom of your feet where they touch the floor. And if it feels right for you, with your feet still on the floor, put your bottom further back in your chair and extend your spine. You might want to imagine a string attached to the top of your head is gently pulling up and helping you extend your spine. And if it feels right for you, just let your body rock forward and back, forward and back, side to side, side to side. And now notice your body again as it is right now. So if you feel activated during the fishbowl, or if something hot comes up, consider doing one or more of these practices, not to calm yourself down, but to center yourself so your highest self can choose whether to respond and how to respond. And if you choose to respond, we invite you to remember the humanity of everybody here, including yourself. And remember that whatever you're experiencing, others may be experiencing that too. And remember that your voice is important. And finally, remember, we're here to create allies, not conflicts. And if a conflict arises, we'll facilitate it. So, of course, only the fishbowl participants are going to be speaking during the fishbowl, but after the fishbowl, there's going to be time for others to speak as well.
Turn it back to a gallery view, and we can see each other. So as we're coming out of that powerful opportunity to talk together, let's take a moment, check in with yourself. Notice your body and your feelings, and let's refocus on the topic. So what we're going to do, if you want to speak, you bring your cursor to the bottom of your Zoom screen and click the reactions button. You'll see raise your hand. And when you raise your hand, as you raise your hand, it's going to take things in order. So as you raise your hand, we'll see who to call on, and we'll start to do that. We'll call on you in the order that you raise your hand. And we are going to reserve the right that if there's something happening that we want to talk about, that maybe for a little bit, if it feels important. The chat is open for your thoughts and questions and comments. Christina is going to watch the discussion to see if something needs to be read out. So Christina, if people are talking about something, feel free to bring it up, speak out, however you want to do that. And just remember what Lane said in the beginning, listen carefully, stay present, notice your body. Just right now, everybody just notice your body. See what you feel in your body. Step up if you have something to say. Step back when you're not talking. If you find that you're talking a lot, maybe just wait and give everybody a chance. So if you feel you're getting activated, remember the resilience practices, breathe, hum, rock side to side, just bring it in, keep it in your awareness. Resilience is critical. So now we're asking each person, hands are raised, we're asking each person that joins the conversation to start by giving your name, how you self-identify racially and ethnically, and then go ahead to join the discussion. So Lane, did you want to add anything?
Just that the first person in line happens to be my father-in-law. Welcome, Ken.
Oh, good to know. I can.
Thank you. I want to thank all of the participants who just spoke. I want to thank you for a very real reason. You made it possible for me to know that this kind of a group is one you can really trust, because you're the amount of honesty and sincerity, it goes beyond what I have seen in groups. Oh yeah, we're going to go do something. But you don't know who's going to go do it and what their commitment to life is. And it's obvious the commitment to life is the idea of we, all of us, not I or myself, my own interests, but all of us have one thing in common. We have a prize we have to accomplish. We have to make other human beings feel safe with each other, trust each other, and work together so that it's always a we, not an I. Thank you.
Thanks, Pops.
Thank you, Ken. And if you lower your hand after you've spoken, and then the next person is Tracy.
I am Tracy Pratt. I identify as a Black woman, Black Christian woman. And I just had a couple comments as I was listening. And I feel like just going back to the original question. And Diane, is it possible that you could like reread the question?
I can read the question.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I have all this paper. I don't have much committed to memory. I have everything written down. So.
I got it here if you want.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, no, Lane, thank
You got
you.
it.
I have it. I have it.
Nice.
Okay, here it is. As we said in the beginning, this summit is more than a meeting. It is a call to action, an invitation to unite in solidarity, amplify our voices, and catalyze change. The question for the fishbowl and for this group now, the larger group, how do we do that? How do we build relationships in this moment and find common cause?
So I feel like one of the answers to the question, and I'm not sure, forgive me if this was already stated and somehow I missed it, but to go back, to retrace our roots, to go back in history and find what we do have in common, to find both Black roots or African descended roots and Jewish roots. What's in common? What do our ancestors have in common? What do we have in common in terms of our treatment, not just now, but going back further in history? And we'll probably find that we have more similarities than we have differences, and maybe wrap ourselves and our heads around those similarities. And also just really trying to take some deep breaths, and just as you guys laid out at the beginning, for us to really listen, to hear each other, to hear I don't want to use the word plights, but I can't think of any other different word. And just so, for example, the gentleman who talked about that once upon a time, we African descended people were considered 3/5 human. That was done very, very systematically on purpose so that the institution of slavery could be palatable. So if we know it was very systematically done, it's not undone in 2023, which is why it's so easy to shoot a Black person or a person of color 25 times in the back, because somewhere in the back of other people's head, we're still not considered human. And it's important to understand that. It's also important for us to understand that Jewish people, what has happened to them over time was very systematically done. And it will take years to undo all that, years that we don't have, but to really work to know what's happened to each of us, and to work to understand it, and to understand that we as a people, both people, have come a long way, And if we can unite, that we can go even further.
Thank you, Tracy. And if you can lower your reaction, Susie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susie. I'm white and British, and I'm English. So I'm from a very specific part of the United Kingdom. But I also consider myself to be European as well. My heart is beating really quickly, so I just want to name that, because what I wanted to talk about was this idea of criminal that was showing up in the fishbowl. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about that idea, because I think the idea of somebody being a criminal is the way in which systems of white supremacy have systematically abused and oppressed and committed genocide against Black people and Jewish people. And so I just wanted to name that. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the way that anti-Semitic white supremacy propaganda describes the Jewish youth, like it describes a thing, and that Jewish people will use Black people to sell drugs and to pollute society. And just to speak a bit of that idea of like what a criminal is part of those conspiracy theories that we are here to actively dismantle, and I'm actively against. So I just wanted to say that when that idea comes up, that's an idea that's supporting that systematic, those systems of oppression, and that maybe we like to unpack that, or just to say that there aren't criminals, that's a system of oppression. And okay, anyway, that's enough for me.
I really appreciate what you're saying there, Susie, and I also had a slight shiver when I heard that word in our country. Poverty is criminalized, and and then people are trying to do what they can do to survive, and then they're shot for that. But the criminal thing is our white supremacist capitalist society that makes people poor, and especially Black folks. And so, all right.
Thank you. I think that's what I was trying to say, Lane. You said it better than me.
I that's what I heard in what you said. So, hey, Rita.
In foggy Northern California, white, Ashkenazi Jewish. Hello, Lane. Thank you for inviting me. A few things. It's been very moving being here and being part of the fishbowl. Again, the authenticity and vulnerability in the sharing. And the speaking when the heart is pounding is always a challenge. Thank you, Susie, for naming that. First of all, I wanted to make sure in communicating with Lane before this that we acknowledge all the Black Jews and Jews of color, something my synagogue works hard to really work on ourselves to make our spiritual home a place that is welcoming and inclusive for Black Jews, people of color, etc. So I wanted to bring that in. The really difficult thing that I want to bring in here, first of all, my activist commitment has, and as a Jewish person, has been around supporting justice for Palestinians. And when I saw a few years ago how Black Lives Matter was coming together with support for justice for Palestinians, I felt, well, there's a kind of allyship where Jews, Blacks, Palestinians, where we can come together in the really what I think is one of the most important issues that we're seeing at this time. So what I want to bring in here is a concern about a very well-funded and powerful and vocal part of the pro-Israel movement can drive us apart by bringing anti-Semitism in when we support justice for Palestinians in a way that threatens specifically non-Jewish Black folk who want to support Palestinians but are afraid that Jews will accuse them, you, of being anti-Semitic. And I just need to bring into this conversation the dangerous use of the weapon of the accusation of anti-Semitism to shut down very important political allyship right now. And I'm bringing it in as a Jewish person because it's something that I need to combat in my community, and I want it to be held here. So thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
You said that so powerfully, Rita. That was, thank you. Speak for me.
Is it Maria?
Yeah, yes, it's Maria.
Okay.
Well, I want to first just appreciate the people who have thought of this. To do this is amazing to me and wonderful. And I just really appreciate it. And I think that racism and anti-Semitism are both systemic, as people have pointed out. This is something that people do plan so that we can be disempowered to make the bigger changes. And that one of the ways that we can undo that is to tell our whole story, because you can't argue with that. We just need to talk about what happened. What happened to us? What happened to our people? And that's something that isn't a political difference. That's us getting to know each other, which I think is, you know, relationship by relationship, one at a time. And it's an important thing to do. And then I also think that every group that is in that was born into an oppressive role, not wanting to be, I did not ask to be racist, but I was brought up in a racist world. And so I carry racism, and I think that people who are not Jewish carry anti-Semitism. And it's not something that we asked for or wanted, but we have to talk about that sometimes with just our own group of people, so that we don't say things that are hateful to the other group.
If you could speak a little louder, Maria,
Okay,
you're
okay,
cutting out a little bit.
Okay, I think my hand was in the front of the microphone. So
Yeah.
what where did you lose me? Where was the whole thing? No.
Oh, if you just go back 1 minute.
Okay. So what I said is that, well, I did say that we need to tell each other our stories, because that will bring us together again. And then I think we grew up in groups where we were part of an oppressive role, even though we did not ask to be. I did not ask to be racist, but I did acquire racism. And I have to look at that. And I think it's best to do that sometimes not all the time, but sometimes just with other white people, other white Jewish people, so that I don't say things that are hurtful, but I raise my consciousness. And I think that's true with every group. I think that people who are Christian, sometimes it's good to just talk about it with each other and then come together and talk about what it's like and have these kinds of discussions too are so important. So it's just one way of doing things. It's not the only way, but that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just add to that, because I'm struck by what TC said and also what Sundiata said, and I want to underscore. So I'm hearing that that people are born into. We're born into a white supremacist society everywhere. It's everywhere, and so we wouldn't still be even able to be alive if we didn't pick up enough to be able to survive. So, and that goes equally, you can be Black. And in fact, most Black people that everybody I know, we have anti-Blackness in our, because we buy in, we live in white supremacy. So we have anti-Blackness. It's what TC said, the nose, the hair, all the things that we want to emulate the white, and for good reason, because they have everything, right? But we can't wait until we're healed. We have to be willing to speak up and even be wrong and just keep moving. Try, get your heart, just shape yourself. You have to step up and stand up and not wait until we're healed. So thank you. And Dr. Nancy.
Hi, everyone. It's a privilege to be here today. And I just wanted to share the themes that have really touched my heart from the fishbowl. I got pretty emotional with some of it. This is in no specific order, but I was really touched by the idea that all life has value, that Frank said. And TC, when you talked about looking in the mirror, and anytime we're causing harm, and unwittingly, I identify as a white American woman. I'm a very active in my progressive Christian church. And I just think I need to keep looking in the mirror to see how I maybe unwittingly, or because, as someone else just said, I acquired racism, even though I didn't ask to be born into a white supremacist culture, but I get all the privileges of white skin privilege. So I'm just thinking how I can keep looking at how I cause harm without intending to. And then the honesty of all these discussions. I've heard at least half of the people here who commented, when we can emotionally really share from our hearts, our strengths, our passions. I'm passionate about when I see harm being done to Jewish synagogues being blown up, Black people being shot and killed and harmed in other ways. And even although that's not the focus of this discussion, I have a lot of grief for Muslim Americans being targeted all the time. And so I just think we all have a lot of work to do. And there's a lot of groups being marginalized that we're not even discussing right now. So we all have a lot to do, and thank goodness we're coming together today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah. Debbie.
Okay. Hi, I'm Debbie Rothman. I'm in New York. I'm Jewish, and I've struggled always with whether I identify as white or not. I mean, obviously my skin is white and I happen to have particularly light skin. I mean, this lighting makes it worse, but I really do. And yet I don't in any way see that as identity, except that because people see me that way, treat me that way, that becomes part of my identity. often, instead of saying, that I'm white and American, I will say I'm Jewish, which is absolutely true, and I'm involved in Yiddish language and Jewish culture. And I also say I'm a New Yorker rather than an American, especially given some things that are going on. I've been lately also looking at my Eastern European, I am Ashkenazic, my Eastern European origins more than I had before because of the whole Russian-Ukrainian situation. I know where my immediate, like my grandparents come from, and it's not exactly Russia or Ukraine, although everything was under the Tsar at some time. But, Jews in Eastern Europe moved around a lot, sometimes mostly because they had to. And even if they didn't move, the borders switched. So one day they're in one country, one day they're in another. I'm sure that I'm in some part Ukrainian. I'm sure I'm in some part Russian. I'm Polish. And all these various identities that don't like mesh quite anymore. I live in Sheepshead Bay, which is near Brighton Beach, where Russians and Ukrainians were
Debbie,
talking to each
Debbie,
other.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but because of our short time,
Okay,
could you say the point of what you wanted to say? I also know right behind you is Heiko, who is German, who could be an important voice here too. Yeah.
All right. No. I was actually moved and involved in the opening discussion about the Sabbath. I'm very secular. I don't observe the Sabbath as such. I didn't even notice there's a problem. In fact, going to something like this is observing the Sabbath. But for me, it's the closest thing I come to thinking about important things and how to be a better person and so on. But I was concerned in terms of understanding each other. For people who are religious, it's not a day of rest as we would think. Oh, you don't have to work, or you can take it easy. And it's not a privilege. It's like a central obligation that they have to follow, and that defines the Jew for many people, defines being Jewish and has defined it for thousands of years. And if a religious person wanted to participate in this, they really would not have been able to. And I just wanted to make that point, and and the larger issue of understanding where each other are coming from, and when certain words are used, they have different meanings in different contexts. Anyway, that was I don't want to say any more because it's too much time, but
thank you so much, Debbie. I really appreciate you sharing all that. Yeah, Heiko.
Yeah, I'm Heiko Spadek. Thank you, Lane. Thank you, Diane, for putting this together. I'm identify as white and German, and specifically East German, which is culturally quite different. And however, because of what I'm going to say, I also want to say I identify as a trans man. I identify as a wheelchair user. I'm chronically ill. And because I want to point at something that Diane said earlier, of really like showing up with our identity, support each other. Right, when I'm in spaces as a white person, spaces where it's about race, I will do my best to pick up my white privilege, show up as a white person, and with what that means. And then in spaces where Jewishness and so specifically anti-Semitism is addressed, I will do my best to come in as a German and bring my myself in support. And I am also all the other things. I am here because I understand the visibility of being disabled as a wheelchair user. I cannot hide. I understand the invisibility of being a trans man who's passing mostly. And the daily discrimination of walking out and never being able to hide and walk away. And that's why I'm here too. And I'm a big fan of, that really hit me what you said, Diane, of like showing up with all of our identities to support one another. And with that, create a community of support and strength, and really fighting for what we believe, fighting against the shooting, fighting, for life, for everybody being a full human, not just 3/5. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan is the last one. Say it for all of us, Alan.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the Sabbath space here. I think I learned, and many other Jews learned, I can only speak for myself. I'm Jewish, I'm white, I'm Jewish by way of Joan and Lee Gutman, my parents, by way of my dad's parents, Paul and Blanche Gutman, by way of my mom's parents, Martin Alpert and Bess Alpert, and also identifying from New York as well as part of that Jewishness in me. But certainly in the COVID years, many Jews learned that the Zoom space can be a sacred space, even on Yom Kippur, to study, to engage in discussion, to really try to understand some of what's been studied for years on the Sabbath, and in a language that I can understand it. Thank you. I'm going to also say that I come with a racist identity that mostly comes from Joan and Lee Gutman, from my family growing up. Stereotypes, bias, horrible racist jokes. I also come by way of anti-racism in that same mother who sort of, inspired me to speak out. And then today, I want to thank TC for showing the path, the inspiring way to take baby steps. What inspired me was this image of kissing his grandfather. And I think for me, there's two ways I see, there are two approaches, but they are pathways maybe to keep moving forward, which is we have this verbal space of first coming close in a verbal space, first by having the contact, then, maybe by getting closer, trusting more, then by being open and honest and bearing our souls, and then by loving in this virtual verbal space. And then what I've tried to do in my life here also is in the physical space, first just being in proximity, choosing to live in Hampton, Virginia, knowing there was going to be proximity with many Black people in this community. Whether they were going to start as friends or be friends, I don't know that, but at least putting myself in proximity. And then again, building on what TC said, moving towards proximity, towards contact, towards, a level of intimacy, and that to me is a positive pathway. But, it may be baby steps starting in that verbal sphere and in the intellectual sphere, but I think part of it has to move into physical sphere. Certainly in the verbal sphere, there's plenty of opportunities to speak out when you hear someone make a racist or biased remark. That's a baby step, but that should be the first baby step we should all be able to take. And in this world, hugging a Black person in public, that would have been taboo for years. But maybe that kind of a baby step in public, maybe that's the physical version of a baby step, pushing back against years of not allowing that or looking down upon that. And thank you for the time today, Diane and Lane. Thanks for the leadership and facilitation. And thanks for everybody that was in the fishbowl that opened themselves up, and for everybody outside the fishbowl.
Thank you, Alan. We've come to the end of our time. Thank you all very much. We want to hear from Frank, and he will tell us some things. So Frank.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. It was an incredible experience to be part of it, and to know that people came and seemed like we really got a very deepening for one another, and I appreciate that. Just want to say that the next event we will have is October 21st. We're going to do a forum for everyone, but it'll be centered around Black and brown women and trying to build the same kind of commonalities between Black and brown women and white women. So look for that on Eventbrite. You will see that. And make sure if you sign up, you'll get all of our events and notices ahead of time. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
Before we go, Frank and Diane, can I say something? Being in the spirit of Juneteenth, I would hate for us to leave here and not acknowledge my ancestors who went through all types of stuff in order for me to be here. And if you know history, in order for you to be here.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Frank, this is the first time we're running our outro. We have a new one. Frank is in charge. Can you start that?
Yeah.
And if folks want to stick around after the outro, sometimes we have an after party.
Just after living, you're ready, get steady. Power pop in the RGC. Wake up in the morning, see the sun. Feel the streams of beams, enough light for everyone. We carry some scary, some varied, some problems, some deep and some very dumb. Fighting for fake spots in a mental crayon box. Facing human isolation cause of culture run by a TV station here in this nation. A death plot can be made cause of your shade. Your skin, the suit you came in like. Getting a spade in a deck of cards. You're building charge. Now your life's made hard. And some hate the next cause of diff complexion. This direction is complex, producing divides like Harriet T, Charles Drew, Minister X, Noble Drew Ali and Muhammad. In these days, survival community rise to the summit. Won't plummet to RGC, don't dumb it down or be bound in a box. We allow our plus power to shower the Tower of Babel and bring the real feel of the human spirit to the table. The spirit catcher. Spirit catcher. Like a chain and a notch, like a particle of time on a stopwatch. In a vast sea, you and me represent drops. Community represent continuity for those soon to see. Not yet to be, wanna live forever. One bridges kids to other is your ways and actions, the things you did, or what you left. Is it a hot mess or progress? Justice is a must give unless you lack the lust to live. Really existing, no mixing it up. There's a right as natural as the breeze you breathe and live in this life. Overstand the rhythm of the universe is played with different strings, and you disperse displayed noise. Understand these things. Don't go for okie dokie. Volunteers wanna see currency and country smoky and crying with tears, collabing with others. Cooking in their own cabin and correct the trajectory. Our ancestors directed me to truth up, spruce up with a new option story. People power pop in the RGC. People power pop in the RGC. People power pop in the RGC. The spirit catcher. Spirit catcher. People power pop in the RGC.
Thank you, everybody.
And if you do have time to stick around, it would be fun to talk to folks. Sundiata, Susie wants to know where she can hear more of your incredible music.
Are you gonna make me blush here? Okay, so if you want, you can go to YouTube and check out 999 EYE. That's the station. Also, we have streetpressure.com, which is very good for all types of resources, businesses, things that happen in our communities, things that you may not know about us. So streetpressure.com and on YouTube, 999 EYE. I'll let you know also, I'm a filmmaker and there's some films on there too. You might want to check them out, but I would watch them as adults.
Good morning. Good morning, Sundiata. I want to give a little shout out to my friend Orly, who joined us today from Sun River, Oregon. Hi, Orly. She's done a lot of work in both the Jewish and Black community over the years.
I want to give another shout out, if we're still talking about Sundiata, because he's a writer of children's books. And so in addition to his songwriting, he has children's books on that you can find on Amazon. So he writes children's books, and he gives I mean, we've done it here. We've had opportunities, we've done sessions where he reads and talks about books for children with children.
Don't forget the illustrator.
Yes, his mother illustrates for him. That would be Annie Cooper.
Hello, Miss Annie.
Hey, well, I want to hear from real quick. I didn't hear what Jordana was going to say. She had her hand up, and I always am interested in her thoughts on things.
Sundiata. It's not much of a comment. I just was reminded by Ken and a few other people, when you look at that Black people or people who self-identify are 14% of the US population, and Jews, people who identify as Jews, are 2.2%. They're such small numbers, and yet people are so afraid for different reasons of each group. And it reminds me of when you look at a community, when it's in flux, and let's say it's a white community and there's a certain concentration of people, and when it reaches a certain level, suddenly that becomes a problem, whoever those people are. So I just think it's important to think about, how is it that two very tiny group, relatively speaking, small groups within the US population are so feared and are given so much power, let's say, in terms of the white imagination and what those groups are up to. So that's all I wanted to say.
Deep as usual.
The power of propaganda.
Yes,
I wondered too about why it is that it seems worldwide that there's this anti-feeling toward Jews. I don't understand it.
Well,
I just wanted to say that oh, Ken, I think I interrupted you. I've often noticed how white neighborhoods or groups will congratulate themselves on being, we don't have any racism here because maybe one Black person has become a member, but you change that to 4 or 5 Black people, and all of a sudden there's a lot of racism.
there's always a need for the other, and it's usually the powerful that use the other as an excuse to staying in power. In Europe, when everybody looked sort of the same color, but Jews were a tiny minority, you could point to them as your problem. In America, where there was more diversity, you look at the smallest population and you point to them, and it's the powerful people who point to them as the problem. Because otherwise, if you didn't point to them as the problem, the people who don't have power might get together and usurp the power that you have. But as long as you can point to someplace else, they stay in power. The people in the middle who are also getting squashed say, oh, it's their fault because the people who have power told us it's their fault. That's why it works so well, and it works throughout all through history. It's been working for the last 3,000 years. The king said it was those guys over there. You guys are good. You support me, we'll get rid of those bad guys. And the king stays in power, takes your money, and that's the way it's been. It's an old game, but it works really well. How can a billionaire named Trump say, ask for donations? And people give it to him who have nothing almost. I mean, there's no logic.
I will just second what you just said, Ken. I completely agree with you. It's called scapegoating. You need somebody to blame.
And I think that's why this, when I saw, Lane, your email, this announcement, it's like these like spaces where we come together, different groups, to talk about fighting together against the powerful instead of fighting each other, right? Because that is what, part of that's what Annie advised us, like, why against both? Oh, then they can fight each other and everybody fights the other person. If all marginalized people in this country came together, like, the powerful wouldn't stand a chance.
Amen.
And
Yeah.
Heiko, I really appreciate, I'm sorry, Miss Annie,
Go
were you
ahead.
saying something?
Go ahead, Lane.
Oh, there was you, Nancy. Heiko, I just want to really appreciate you speaking up today and being here today. It's so great to see you. And what you're talking about is happening on a incredible level against the trans community, and it's really just horrific and dangerous, so dangerous what is happening right now across the country. And to Ken's point, the focus group said, oh, that's how you can make money. That's how you get votes. This is gonna unite the most people behind us. And I'm just so sorry that you and the trans community are targeted there.
Thank you. And that's why we are all here in this space, right? Focusing, and that's why I'm a big fan to support each other in whatever ways we can. Can I add, sorry, one more thing though, that as groups were speaking, people were speaking, it's also we all have so much to deal with already. And so to appreciate what each other we can bring towards one another too, and step into other places too. I think it's also just felt like that, like each group on our own has a lot to deal with. So thank you.
Thank you, Heiko. And Lane, I want to lift up for a minute what you just did. You took the time to feel the pain in Heiko's sharing and to comment on it and to empathize with it. And that's how we're going to build common cause and bridges between us. And you just modeled that for all of us sitting here, as many of us have done today. And I just want to thank you for that leadership. And what Ken said, I would describe as the old game of divide and conquer. And if we can stop letting power groups divide and conquer the rest of us, then that is how we make common cause and come together.
Just want to see a couple of folks here who
Lane, Miss Cooper was just about to speak when you
thank
started.
you. I did not notice that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I was glad to hear about the next topic is going to be focused on women, because when you think as we listen to comments that people made, what is most visible is about the injustices to Black people is generally focused on killing the men, and there's usually no real discussion about what's happening to the Black women. So I'm looking forward to October. And I also feel that in trying to try to influence people in their thinking, that we all, some of us also have family issues that could be dealt with, because you yourself might be on the path of trying to make things better, but some other people are stuck in the indoctrination of what society tells them. So if we get things straight in the family and the community, and it spills out.
Carol, before you go, it'd be just great to hear your voice.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't have much of a voice. I've been very, very ill for 6 months. Another chronic illness, white person. And I am committed to the work that all of you really have brought to the front here today, again and again, in deeper and more real ways. I appreciate the deep uncomfortableness at moments, and then also the looking at the underside of that and being able to have this conversation in these times where if we don't learn to do it together, I think we're all not going to be here at some point. We and as a white person, I'm committed as an ally to BIPOC and Jewish people. And as I said in my little note, I will continue to look at the mirror and do my work internally and be as human as possible. So thank you really for facilitating and speaking up from your identities and the work that you are doing. It's very powerful. I'm losing my voice again. So anyway, I will be in future conversations as well.
Take good care, Carol.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol. Hey, Carol, I would like to point this out to you before you go. As we come here, we learn. Some of us don't like that BIPOC term.
Got it.
I'm just letting it be known.
Yeah, got it.
Many people don't know what it means either.
That's so true. So I'm committed to Black and brown
Can you tell the group what you mean when you say BIPOC? Because I don't think everyone knows.
Yes, BIPOC means Black, Indigenous,
People of color.
color. Yeah, my brain is pretty mushy these days, but yes, thank you for calling that in lovingly.
But I just wanted to add on a little bit of information.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I was asked to shift my POC words into BIPOC, and at the same time, it's very true that people don't often know what that means.
There you go. Good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Thanks so much, Carol.
Yeah. That's a good example of, for both Carol and Sundiata, that's a good example. We're never going to satisfy everybody. So what we have to do is we have to step out and we have to say our truth and let our truth grow, let it expand. But we're not going to grow if we're afraid to speak or to step out or to write or however we want to do it. So don't hesitate, because you're gonna, this is just coming from me, right? Don't hesitate to try to talk about something because you're afraid you're going to hurt somebody's feelings. That's a cop-out.
Don't hesitate to be wrong, huh, Diane?
Don't hesitate. How are you going to learn because that's an excuse. I say, I can't go here and I can't talk about this because I might hurt somebody's feelings. Well, that means you're not interested, really.
Well, I don't know, but I think we have to overcome our trepidation about hurting people because language keeps changing, information keeps changing.
Yeah.
So you're right.
What Nancy said.
And
what Nancy
you know.
So, Orly? You're not muted, but we don't hear you. I don't hear you.
Got it. Okay. The beauty of the fishbowl for me was that the very first person that spoke brought out one vulnerability in her, and that opened up the discussion. So what my takeaway is that our willingness to be vulnerable with at least a tiny part of ourselves opens up the possibility for more discussion and more conversation. And that happened so beautifully and was built on in the fishbowl. So I really loved how you used that as part of this whole program. Thank you for that. And thank you for those that participated in that.
That's a better way to look at it. And I mean, that's a better way to say that instead of saying, don't be afraid to offend people, say don't, because it's about being open and vulnerable, willing to say something and learn from that. So vulnerability is really what we're getting at.
I want to add something to that about, I don't know if I've just squashed someone, so they said there it is. There it is, right in the moment. I'm like, I'm gonna squash someone, I shouldn't say anything, I've just done it. Oh, brilliant, there we go. And what did I want to add? Maybe it was just that. It's something for me that I've learned is that if I've said the thing that I really needed to say and wanted to say, that's what I keep coming back to. It's like, it's better that I've said it than all the times in my life, and there've been many when I've just kind of scuttled off and not said anything. It's better to say it. That's where I'm at right now. That may change in a week or a year, but if I've got something and I think I need to say this now, this is important to say it, and then yeah, that's where I'm at. I just wanted to add that to that, like to bring it back, to not try and take care of everybody else as well and like think, oh my God, what's everybody else going to be doing or thinking? Because I think that's oppressive as well, like, because then I'm saying to you, you can't handle what I'm going to say, or you are going, you know, it feels like it's part of oppression. So I wanted to add that too into the mix.
I think it gives the other person an opportunity to respond to your perspective, and because there are different opinions and different ways to look at things, and lots of times we don't understand what other people mean by what they're saying. So if you don't say it, you don't give yourself an opportunity to learn. So fortunately, sometimes afterwards, I can ask Sunyata what was that all about, because it goes right over my head.
I'm wondering if somebody would like to say a little something that hasn't spoken yet, that's listening. Just if you have a desire, just jump in.
Dr. Bob's got his hand up.
Dr. Bob, I got my moon on, but I was doing some work around the house, but I just wanted to say thank you, Lane and Diane and Susie over in London. Just wanted to say hello to a few people, but it was just very touching. I was just mostly listening and absorbing and just reflecting on all the different things that were said today. And just very grateful for the discussion, and just developing my sensitivity to these differences among a lot of people, and just a wonderful way to spend a few hours on a Saturday. And just wanted to thank you very much. And Lane, if I may say, it was really cool. Your father-in-law, I was really touched by your father-in-law being on the call. I was just touched by the family that you must have. So I was very appreciative of that. And again, thank you, everyone.
Ken is a beautiful man, incredibly devoted to justice in all forms, and just giving of himself beyond, and just also a really warm human being who I've had 3 father-in-laws, and Ken is by far the best.
I'm just really touched by a father-in-law sharing this with you and everyone, the depth of the relationship that exists in your family.
You look so much alike. Your father.
Ashkenazi Jews.
You know,
Another human on the planet.
So let's everybody take a deep breath as we're ready to close this out. And thank you all for coming. We'll see you October 21st. Take a deep breath. Well, we hope to hear from you before then, but take a deep breath and release. And thank you all for coming. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Debbie,
much.
I just wanted to apologize for interrupting you there, and thank you for your graciousness with that.